Last year, we warned about the government's intention to reduce NIS benefits. 1 year later, our information is that the decision has been taken to begin implementing these reductions. One of their recommendations is to deny you your NIS pension until the age 65. After paying NIS religiously throughout your entire working life, and you now retire at age 60, and you are counting on that NIS pension, you now have to wait until age 65. So you will be on retirement without your NIS pension for a whole 5 years. After they have mismanaged the fund by not ensuring that employers are compliant in remitting both their payment and their employees' NIB contribution to the fund, with thousands of workers not being able to contribute to the fund because they are home, and with bad investment of the fund, all of this is contributing to the mismanagement of the fund. But you, the worker, have not contributed to the mismanagement. You have diligently made your full contribution during your entire working life, and now they want to deny you your NIS pension. What is even worse is that they are saying that you are living too long and that you are a burden on the state. Whilst this government is planning to deny poor people their NIS pension, ministers and parliamentarians, all of them, their pensions are guaranteed and even indexed to cope with inflation. How more unfair can these people get? These are the same people who are cutting the CPEP workers' meager salary. Additionally, since the shutdown of Petrotrin, the country has lost $625 million TT dollars in PAYE, $347.5 million TT dollars in NIS, and $10 million TT dollars in health surcharge.
Good day, Trinidad and Tobago. I am Ozzi Warwick. I am the General Secretary of the Joint Trade Union Movement. I'm also the Chief Education and Research Officer of the Oilfield Workers Trade Union. And you would have just heard another excerpt from the Labor Day feature address delivered by the President of JTUM, Comrade Ansel Roger. Now, whilst that address dealt with a whole range of issues, the one you just heard was really one of the more disturbing issues. And that has to do with pension, the age of pension, and this whole issue of NIS. Making it worse, of course, was the statement made by the Minister of Finance about our senior citizens being a burden to the state. And he seemed to want to continue down that line, entrenching this view in other public utterances. Now, on Labor Day morning, during the wreath-laying ceremony, the traditional wreath-laying ceremony at the gravesite of Uriah Bus Butler, of course, before the curfew, Clyde Elder was very vocal, criticizing the minister for his statements with regards to pensioners and NIS. Well, we have with us Comrade Clyde Elder. He's the Secretary General of the Communication Workers Union. And good day, Comrade Elder.
Good day, Comrade Ozzi. Thank you for having me, and good day, I should say, to all of Trinidad.
Yes, well, you heard the excerpt from Comrade Roger highlighting this issue and reminding all that it was the labor movement since last year, and I even could recall for some years well, I've been warning about this issue of the NIS. And you had quite a few things to say about the Minister of Finance statement about our senior citizens, who we feel very proud of course, being a burden on the state. So may I ask you, I'm assuming your views have not changed.
It certainly has not changed, Ozzy. The minister has not changed. Of course, Alepa cannot change its spot. And his view remained the same, and therefore my view remains the same. I think he was very much disrespectful. His statements were vexatious. It was a deliberate attack, not just on the working class, but on a special category of the working class, who are the senior citizens. Now, they are a special category to me because they are the persons on whose shoulders we stand, including Minister Imho. And for him to make the comments that he made about our senior citizens, it says that he has absolutely no regard, no respect, and he just does not care about the contribution they made to the society. Mind you, because of their contribution, he is now managing an economy that they had to build. And he has absolutely no respect for that. And I think that he was very obnoxious. In fact, he was his usual self, because he made this statement about a raised gas price once there right yet, a raised gas price twice there right yet, I said 3 times there right yet, I think he raised it the next time again. And that is to tell you the measure of demand. And I say measure, and no pun intended on the word measure. And I think Minister Imbert is out of touch with reality, and he's out of touch with what really impacts the National Insurance Services and the National Insurance Board, and the reason why he felt he needed to make that statement. And we're going to get into some more of that. But I think Minister Imbert really has gone beyond his usual atrocious self, and he's going into a different realm by attacking our senior citizens. That's the lowest he could go, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, I think it was a bit, surprising that somehow he placed the situation of the fund on the aging population, almost as though it's a punishment to age healthily.
Yes.
And when you consider the contribution that our senior citizens have made to building this country, it was a really disturbing statement. But now let's get into maybe why he made that statement, or what is even wrong, putting aside the fact that it was a disrespect to our senior citizens. I mean, let us just look into, does it even make sense to make such a statement in terms of what really have the NIB fund where it is? Now, one of the issues that Comrade Roger raised was the question of compliance by employers.
Correct.
What are your views on the issue of, on rather, non-compliance by employers?
And Ozzy, that is one of the most critical issues why the National Insurance Fund is not where it is supposed to be. We have errant employers, some who will employ persons and not deduct any national insurance at all. Some will employ persons deducted and not remitted. Mm. And there are some employers who tell themselves that they are so smart that they will even classify their workers in a lower category than they in fact paid, and pay lower contribution for the workers. And these things impact negatively on the National Insurance Fund. And these are the issues that Minister Imbert should be addressing. Now, he himself and the government itself would have realized with the COVID relief grant that this was an issue, because they got enough data to show where people were registered for national insurance, but it was not being paid. And yet they have done nothing up to now to remedy or to take care of that situation. Now, mind you, that is provided for in the law, but yet they have done nothing as a government to ensure that they correct that situation. And there are certainly more issues than that, Ozzy, that affects the National Insurance Board. But certainly, I want to agree with Comrade Roger when he did say that we have errant employers who are not compliant and who are, in fact, putting the fund into the jeopardy that it now finds itself in.
So one of the issues really has to be non-compliance by employers, not aging. Aging is not the threat to the fund. Is the continuation of employers not making the necessary contributions. And I think you articulated quite nicely for Trinidad and Tobago innovative ways in which employers are finding to avoid making that legal contribution based on the law.
Yes.
That issue of non-compliance is real. And just to share with Trinidad and Tobago to reinforce your point, in the 2018 annual report of NIB, their own report, it stated that their customer base was something like 625,422, but there were only 452,234 contributions. That's in 2018. So that's only 72% compliance. And of course, as you mentioned, a lot of the contributions that are made by employers are really piecemeal, and they classify workers lower or less, and therefore they pay less contribution. And you know what's painful is that for so many senior citizens, when you hit 60, you only realize that your employer have not been paying your NIS payment when you're going to get your NIS. Can you imagine?
And that is so correct, Ozzy. Even now as a union, we will have workers coming to us, very young workers, that is, workers in the prime of their work life. And they will say to us, well, I went to NIB to get a readout on a statement. And I supposed to have 52 contribution for last year and the year before, but I only seen 32, only seen 12, I only seen 10. And on top of that, what makes it worse in Ozzy? These people will in fact be advised by us to go to the National Insurance Board and file a complaint in accordance with the law again. They will go and they will file a complaint. And nothing is done by the National Insurance Board itself to bring these errant employers to justice and on to bear. Nothing is done by NIB. Maybe it is because they don't have the resources and they were told to do something. And maybe that is what Minister Imbert's focus should be, rather than to blame the old age pensioners and the senior citizens. Maybe his focus should be on ensuring that the National Insurance Board is adequately staffed and resourced to go after errant employers, to ensure that the fund is close as possible to being 100% compliant in terms of the employers. But they're not focusing on that. Instead, they're focusing on, as is the usual, how do we get the poor man? How do we get the small man? How do you get the older citizens to pay for the wrongs that others are doing? When will it stop?
You mentioned the law, and one of the things a lot of people are not aware of is Section 40 of the National Insurance Act. And let me just read for Trinidad and Tobago, and I would really like to hear your response to this. What Section 4 of the National Insurance Act states, and I quote, "An employer who fails or neglects to pay or effect payment of contribution in respect of any person in his employment who is required to be insured under this act is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $4,000 and 6 months imprisonment, and in the case of a continuing offense, shall be liable in respect of each person for whom he neglected or failed to pay or effect payment of contribution, a further fine of $100 a day for each day that offense continues after conviction." In other words, Comrade Elder, according to the law, according to Section 40, employers who fail to or neglect to pay or effect payment of contribution, they will be on summary conviction. They would be fined $4,000, and according to this section, should be imprisoned for 6 months. Comrade Elder, do you feel that employers should face imprisonment for non-compliance?
Ozzy, it's not about what I feel, It's what the law says. And the law says that they have to be fined and sentenced, not and or, and sentenced. And the minute the authorities ensure that one employer make a jail, you'll see how fast the others will follow what they're supposed to follow. But in this country, is everybody knows somebody and somebody knows somebody, and okay, I can get away with this, I can get away with that because somebody greasing somebody's hand. And once that continues to happen, then you find people will make a jail. But the law must be enacted. If employers are non-compliant, they have to face the courts and then make a jail. What is preventing that from happening? That's the law. That is the law. That's not my feeling. That's not Ozzy feeling. That's not the trade union movement feeling. That is the law.
And the National Insurance Act was part of a package of legislation that came into effect in the 1970s as really a form or a set of social security instruments, right? Social security infrastructure. And the drafters of that legislation in 1974 wanting to, well, first of all, realizing that employers can be very innovative for not paying, but also wanted to show the seriousness of having a strong social security network, a social security infrastructure, that they put this in to make it really a criminal offense. See, that's the key, a criminal offense for employers not to comply with the act and make the necessary contribution for the workers.
Yes, and all of those employers are in fact criminals waiting to be convicted. That's what they are. I mean, of course, a criminal is somebody who has been convicted, but they are criminals waiting to be convicted. Yeah. And once we could get the mechanism in place to ensure that these convictions happen in a timely manner, you'll find that the statements that Mr. Imbert made about the senior citizens being a burden, you'll find that that statement is going to be seriously refined, altered, and changed altogether to state that the National Insurance Board is now doing very well because we have been getting contributions. No. One thing I want to add
that's another issue that I'd like us to talk about, the question of so-called contributions, because recent reports are saying otherwise.
Yeah, well, one thing I want to add, Ozzi, even before we get to that next report, I could recall vividly when the government was about to shut down Petrotrin. I could recall vividly when TSCT was about to send home 500 workers. Just those two organizations alone, Petrotrin and TSTT, the people who you remove from the national insurance system amounted to over 6,000. Now, those 6,000 are not 6,000 in the context of the 600 something registered persons talk about, or the 450 something contributors you spoke about, Ozzi. Those 6,000 are in the highest bracket of the national insurance class and scheme, highest bracket. So when you remove 6,000 people from the highest paying bracket from the national insurance contribution, then what did you do with the national insurance contribution? You in fact impacted on it negatively to the point where you will find that the income coming into that fund is not as it used to be post 2018, before they closed down Petrotrin and before they retrenched over 500 TSCT employees. Now, 500 TSCT employees were retrenched, but over 700 left via different ways and means in the end. So just imagine what you have done as a government who own Petrotrin and who owns TSCT 51%. What did you yourself do as a government to the National Insurance Fund? Did Mr. Imbert address that? No, he did not.
And in fact, it's interesting you raise that very specific point, because Comrade Roger in his Labor Day feature address actually quantified the loss in NIS contribution from Petrotrin workers alone, and it amounted to some $347.5 million was lost.
From Petrotrin workers alone.
Petrotrin alone. So could you imagine if you're adding TSTT, as you mentioned, workers on the higher end of the scale? So that brings me to this more general point about the fall in contribution, right? Now, according to a recent report, NIB, that report stated that NIB is expecting a 10% decline in contributions in 2021. And this now is on top of some 21.8% decline between, guess when? 2015 and 2020. All right, okay, let's take note. So you are talking about 31.8% decline between 2015 and 2021. Now, what does that mean in real numbers? So the contributors fell from 516,926 to some 363,777. And our current workforce, Clyde Elder, is 637,047. So that is almost, that is almost half of your workforce now not paying NIS. So, and why? Because of massive job loss, and Mr. Imbert seemed to have not addressed the question of massive job losses over the last few years.
No, they have not. In fact, they have contributed to the job losses that have been taking place. Because you called a period there, Ozzi, 2015 to 2021, 2020. I can recall in 2015 a significant event happened. And that was that we had a general election, and the People's National Movement became the government of the day. So it is a little more than passing strange to me that there's a nexus or a link between the PNM coming into power and the loss of jobs from then to now. Now, I'm glad that you said it's from 2015, because these days, everything that happened, COVID is the blame. But we are talking even post-COVID, even pre-COVID, even pre-COVID, you had losses in jobs taking place. TDC happened pre-COVID. Metal happened pre-COVID. Caroni Green happened pre-COVID. Government Human Resource Service Company Limited happened pre-COVID. TSTT retrenchment happened pre-COVID. Petrotrin retrenchment and closure happened pre-COVID. So they cannot come to tell me that the reason why the economy is losing so much jobs is because of COVID, because that was happening before COVID. No, it will not surprise me that they come and say that. But for the right thinking, sensible citizen who is paying attention, that will not fly with us. And as I say fly, it was happening with Cal now. And that too is even more burden on the economy and more stress on the National Insurance Fund. Because you have people coming out of the system, and those same people made contributions, and some of them will attempt to access some of those contributions as they reach retirement or as they get closer to retirement age. So what is this government really doing?
Clyde Elder, thank you for really spending this time with me in this interview, because I really think, there are many issues facing our citizens, many, of course, and a lot of them very, very difficult. But you see, this one must touch every one of our hearts, because you're talking about our parents, our grandparents, and you think about NIS payments. In many cases, because there's so much job losses, a whole family depending on that one NIS payment,
Correct.
So it's really a heart, wrenching situation when you would have the political directorate, rather than confront the real issues of non-compliance by employers and massive job losses that have negatively impacted the NIS, somehow have shifted it to aging population. So as we sort of close off, I would like to give you a few minutes to say a few words to Trinidad and Tobago as it relates to NIS and pension, and this attempt to raise pension age to somehow fix the other problem of massive job losses and non-compliance by employers.
Yeah. So Ozzy, let me end off by saying a couple of things. One, as far away as I am from retirement, the issue of pension is one that is dear to me and close to my heart, because I really appreciate what these senior citizens and those before me had done, and on whose shoulders I stand. And I thank them for it. And I think the only way we can really do them justice for the service is to ensure that they have a comfortable life as they prepare to meet their Lord and Maker, and that they prepare to depart this earth. Now, having said that, Ozzy, I also want to add that the social security services, not just in terms of pension, but in terms of disability grant and what have you, these are all important social net for the working class. Some of us who can't do better, who are simply disabled and can't work or what have you, some of us would have contributed towards that. And we need to protect that. And I believe that on its current trajectory, the government is not on the right path. They are not doing well by the working class. They're not doing well by senior citizens. And you're right, anybody who has a mother, father, grandmother, grandfather who has retired, close to retirement, who is looking forward to retirement, must be disgusted by what is taking place and what has been said by Minister Elder. They must be. They must be concerned what is happening with the National Insurance Board and the National Insurance Fund. They must be. And if you're not, then it means that you are either in the 1% who is well off, or you're not a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. Simple as that. And we, as a citizen of Ozzy, we need to do more to highlight these pension issues, because it can't be that people work sometimes all of their life and they can't even enjoy a peaceful and a happy and comfortable retirement. That can't be right.
Thank you. That, of course, was Clyde Elder, the Secretary General of the Communication Workers Union, really sharing some powerful thoughts in terms of this issue, or this vexing issue, really, of pension and NIS as it relates to our senior citizens. And let me join him on behalf of the entire labor movement to express our thanks to our senior citizens for the incredible contribution that every one of you all would have made to building this country. On your shoulders, we stand, including the current government. So thank you very much, Clyde Elder. Thank you very much, Trinidad and Tobago. As we in the labor movement will definitely unite to fight for our pensioners.